Welcome to a geometric conjecture. Here we render the bosons and demystify nature's raison d'etre. Why is there anything at all? The long answer can be found contemplating our quorum of trinities construct. The medium answer may be found upon reflection of this and other short videos in the series. And the short answer is parity or symmetry breaking, for this will help us discern polarity, albeit charge. You see, polarity necessitates and is necessitated by space and time, the environment we call nature. And although our mathematical constructs to describe nature are magnanimous, my findings are best conveyed through illustration, making complex mathematics largely unnecessary. In this way, a wide audience can contemplate some of nature's most complex relationships more readily. So we now embark on a compelling story. Nature appears as a priori exordium of trinities, an abstraction of mathematics, as evidenced in our three master maps. Keep the pause button close by. We begin our understanding of symmetry breaking by juxtaposing our three master maps in order to recognize and establish the synonymous geometry between them, such that master maps 1 and 2 appear to fall out or decouple from master map 3. We'll say that the relative symmetry of master map 3 is analogous to the unpolarized Z boson, and that the relative asymmetry of master maps 1 and 2 are each analogous to the polarized W bosons. And because of this synonymous geometry, we only need focus our attention on master map 1. In this way, we avoid unnecessary complication. And just as master maps appear to fall out or decouple from one another, zones 2 and 3 appear to fall out or decouple from zone 1. We'll say that the relative symmetry of zone 1 is unpolarized, and the relative asymmetry of zones 2 and 3 are polarized. And we also note that central trunks and branches of each zone appear unpolarized, relative to the adjacent trunks and branches in those zones. In this way, we establish polarity, albeit charge, as a recursive phenomenon, and rationalize symmetry breaking to give us a deep sense of what is referred to as the Higgs mechanism. Master maps decouple not just from one another, but also within themselves, as do the W and Z bosons decouple from the Higgs. Take a moment to witness nature breaking from mathematics, something trumping nothing. Truth is in the simplicity of such things. By again juxtaposing our three master maps, we notice that central zone 1 nests and knots circled red remain in fixed position. All other knots are offset, appearing to undergo a clockwise or counterclockwise precession, depending on our vantage. So if we imagine moving counterclockwise 1 magnitude or 1 nest away from the central Z1 knot, we notice the corresponding knot undergoes a counterclockwise precession of 1 magnitude within that nest. If we now imagine traversing counterclockwise 3 magnitudes from the central Z1 knot, we notice the corresponding knot undergoes a counterclockwise precession of 3 magnitudes within that nest, ending up in position Z2. Thus, traversing one zone or 3 magnitudes results in either a 3 or 6 knot precession within the nest, equating to a 1/3 or 2/3 rotation, depending on our vantage, hereby demystifying fractional charge. And traversing 3 zones results in either a complete 2 pi or 4 pi radian rotation, hereby demystifying particle spin. Indeed, this phenomenon of gyroscopic precession gives us profound insight into the very nature of nature. At least for now, we'll continue teasing apart and rendering the bosons. Perhaps the most defining characteristic of master maps are nodes, such as knots Z1 and Z2. These and other nodes are not only utilized to render all properties of all fundamental particles and find structure constants, they also define the relative mass of each boson. Upon close inspection, we see the Z1 knot functioning as a node or conduit, whereby knots converging in the nest share common codes with those diverging in the trunk and branch in which it resides. Let us now quantify the magnitude between the purple Z nodes in each zone. Starting with a scalar magnitude of 81 knots across our flat torus, the relative mass of the Higgs boson. And between Z2 and Z3, we have a vector magnitude of 59, the relative mass of the neutral Z boson, noting the exclusion of the polarized Z2 and Z3 knots. And between Z1 and Z2, we have a vector magnitude of 29 on the short side, making 52 on the long side, the relative mass of the polarized W boson, noting here the inclusion of the polarized Z2 and Z3 knots. And we find this pattern of behavior with each chiral component of the electron, down quark, and up quark, as with the second, third generation particles, thereby defining each as a particular particle. There's no surplus and no shortfall, as we will discern in other videos in the series. And despite how contentious my quorum of trinities construct may be, we cannot ignore the remarkable corroboration with the standard model of particle physics. Critiques are welcomed. However, criticisms dismissing these correlations as being non-causal or mere coincidence are missing the point, for it is nature itself that is begging the question. The notion of if you look hard enough, you'll find what you look for does not readily apply here, as much as any fair-minded skeptic would suppose. We may be wise to remember nature's brutal honesty, the scientific mantra of impartiality, and those noble human traits of curious observation and open-mindedness. Lest it be said that fathoming this kaleidoscopic geometry demands humility, I simply share my most cogent understanding of things in this series of short videos. A wide audience is required to critique and ponder all the profundity.